Now, a nationwide emergency has been declared in Lithuania after hundreds of large balloons entered the country from Belarus. The Lithuanian Prime Minister says it is a hybrid attack with more than 600 large meteorological-type balloons and 200 drones entering the country this year. I can talk now to Zygimantas Pavillionis, the Lithuanian MP. Zygimantas, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good to have you on the programme. So the leader of Lithuania says this is an emergency. Tell us, how serious is this?
It is serious. If you remember, maybe 3 years ago, Lukashenko regime attacked us with so-called instrumentalized migration, with organized migration through our borders. We built a very strong fence, very sophisticated fence, and we pushed this migration out. So now the only way to attack us through the air, and the drones and balloons. Our capital is just 30 kilometers from the border with dictatorship in Minsk. So they are flooding us with balloons. That simply stops the international traffic. Each evening, planes cannot land. And it, of course, affects investors. It affects the confidence in the government. And I think they do it for the reason because, actually this week, tomorrow, we are voting for the defense spending that is 5.3% of our GDP, the highest in NATO. We are one of the best supporters of Ukraine, trying to fight for their freedom. So they try to humiliate, divide the government who is trying to do the right thing.
Right. And so we hear then that these balloons, hundreds of weather balloons, are disrupting air traffic. They force closures of airports. And you say it's a form of sort of hybrid warfare. I assume protests have been made. What is the, if that's the case, what sort of answer has there been from the government of Belarus?
Well, they are just humiliating us and laughing at us. What they want, because you remember the revolution that they actually crashed in 20, they want us to shake the hand of this dictatorship. So it's kind of coercion to cooperation. They don't want us to support freedom and democracy. They want us to embrace dictatorship. And to be very blunt and honest, they see some, winds from Washington, D.C. blowing where Trump administration is actually doing the same. So they say, please, Lithuanians, forget your freedom, forget your democracy, do what Trump does, embrace us, and it will be okay. But it's not okay for us.
Yes. I read that these balloons in some cases, or for all I know, all of them, are loaded with cigarettes. Are we talking about a disruptive, deliberate effect here, which is being disguised as an effort to smuggle cigarettes? Obviously not convincingly, but is that what's going on?
Well, if that would be just cigarettes, you would fly balloons not to international airports,
well, indeed.
Not to block the traffic and for us to catch those balloons. Yeah. So it is actually testing the NATO frontier, because we are NATO frontier, with some kind of new means. Yeah. Another day, it might not be cigarettes, it might be explosive, or it might be intelligence device that would spy on our troops here.
Yeah, and I guess that may well be the intimidatory plan behind all of this. What sort of defences do you have against these incursions? I mean, can you bring down the balloons? Can you shoot them down? What do you do?
And that's exactly where we have to work together, because, we are preparing for the wars of the past or maybe of the present. But as you see now in Ukraine, actually 70 or 80% of the war is done in air, by robots, by movements. And we don't have drone war. Former Lithuanian Prime Minister, my former boss and defense commissioner, is trying to move the idea that, learning from Ukrainian experience, we have to invest money not only in tanks, but into anti-drone and drone armies, because if tomorrow Russia wants to attack UK, for example, they can do it by drones, and by drones that will not be flying only, from outside areas. They might fly through shadow ships that are approaching Britain, or from some containers in the middle of London. And what will you actually do then?
Okay, now Zygimantas, let me ask you while you're here, what do you make of what you've been hearing in recent days from President Trump in Washington himself, speaking in terms which sort of denote a stepping further back from the idea of collective security in Europe through NATO, and the disdain with which he talks about leaders in Europe?
Well, I would say like that. Russian incursions in Georgia and Ukraine show that it is very difficult to occupy a country by territory, by taking its territory. It's difficult. So it's much easier to occupy a country politically. And what's happening right now when I see Witkoff more or less citing the wishful list of President Putin, I think some of advisors in the White House are taken by Russians. And thanks God we have some adults in the room like Rubio and others who are trying to, together with Europeans, to prove to those real estate builders that, well, it's not only Russian money that you can build the peace. It's also about values, about democracy, about international law, about international system that our grandfathers built after the Second World War. I would say some Trump advisors are trying to do something that, some Germans and French, they were doing 2 decades ago. Merkel learned it hard way. You don't shake the hands of Russians. And I will actually cite the Tony Blair, who said to me and my president before stepping down, it was the biggest mistake I made when I invited Russians to G8. I thought I will civilize them. No, they come to destroy our clubs from inside. So yes, we should learn from the history.
Yes, and when you look around Europe and you see the United States stepping back from its historic role as a supporter of security in Europe, do you think Europe's leaders are doing enough and doing it quickly enough to fill the space? There is talk now of a really significant payment to Ukraine, isn't there, from the European Union and from Britain. Do you need to see that and a lot more?
Some of us do, but not all. I would say Nordic, Baltic, and Polish and German nations, they do, because we really raise money for defense. Unfortunately, I was just in your studio in London, and I'm a bit disappointed with my British friends who are raising defense just to 2.5. To be honest, I was with Finnish colleague whose army is 10 times bigger than of British. So it's a joke. We have to wake up. We have to wake up in London as well, because if some of Trump advisors go mad and go a bit pro-Russian, it's time for us to wake up. We can still do it. We are 20 times richer than Russians. So let's do it together. I know that we have some negotiations with British friends on participation in so-called SAFE program. Let's finish those talks. Let's unite our defense with Ukrainians, because honestly, Ukrainians are the strongest army that we have in Europe today, yes, much stronger than British army. So let's unite the forces, and maybe we will not have to call each time to Washington, D.C.
Okay, time for Europe to wake up, and I'm going to be picking up on that theme of discussion in the next hour of the programme. For now, Zygimantas Pavillionis of Lithuania, an MP there. Thank you so much.